Okay, hello. Week 1 of the Sketchbook programme is observational drawing. So I suppose ordinarily people automatically grasp a pencil, but you could draw in absolutely anything that you like. Choose your object. So you could draw lots of different objects. You could just do one from lots of different angles. Would probably be good if for this week you actually produced maybe 3 pages of drawings. It'd be a bit boring if you sat down and drew the same thing for 2.5 hours, so perhaps do quite a few short drawings as well. So obviously you could just work up your outlines, keep it just a line drawing to start off with. This ellipse is quite tricky. I've scaled it up quite a bit as well, so I mean you could draw it sort of the size of the paper, then you'd soon get your 3 pages. A little bit there and then that coming out here. So you see I'm drawing quite rapidly. I'm not worrying too much about it. Now I've got the shape, I can start to make any corrections that I want to, but anyway, you get the idea. It's not rocket science, just drawing from observation. We've got some interesting textures going on here. I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't really see. It's a tiny acorn. And in here, eventually, I'll be wanting to shade quite dark, because to me, that area there is really quite dark. Okay, so you can cross-hatch to build up the intensity of that tone. There is a shadow cast as well, so you can start thinking about adding that in. Okay, now another thing you can do is you can start to think about doing a continuous line drawing. Now this is quite a rapid way of working, and the idea is that you don't take your pencil off the paper. But what you don't want to do, if you're drawing something like so, and you get to a point where you're here and you want to be back over here, you don't necessarily retrace your marks all the way up here. What you do is you don't worry about it and you zoom across, so you end up with these intersecting lines, which can actually produce quite a loose drawing. Now here I'm going to be really reckless and took my pencil off. I'm going to be really reckless. I'm going to draw over that, and then there's a little knobbly bit there, and there's quite a few textured bits, but yeah, so we're not looking at representational perfection here. It's gestural, it's expressive, and it's going to fill your pages up quite quickly. It can be quite a messy way of drawing. It is possible to draw a fairly neat continuous line, but don't get too stressed out with neatness. It is more of an expressive way of working. Okay, so some of the techniques that you can use, you can work in biro. So let's just move that a little bit so I'm not drawing the same thing over and over again. Obviously when you're drawing in pen, you can't rub out, so there's quite a good way of building your confidence, because you've got to just do it, basically. There's no messing. Okay, like so. Not worrying too much about the shape. I'm going to get some tone here and here. Okay, and maybe over here as well. That's a really messy drawing. Now what I'm going to do is, maybe I won't because I think it's empty. I'm going to dissolve the ink with hairspray. Okay, and nothing's going to happen. Yes, it is. So it's a bit smelly. Make sure you do this in a very ventilated area. But what's starting to happen is the hairspray is starting to dissolve the ink. Okay, get rid of that one because that one's empty. Now what you'll have to do is you'll have to let that carry on dissolving and moving around your paper. Leave it on the side, let the fumes go, let it evaporate, and then what you can do is you can work back into it. So where you've got this ink here, as you can see, it's dissolving, it's going to continue travelling, and you'll end up with a large area of this sort of mid-tone. What you might want to do is then paint over that bit there, so you bring back in that crisp edge between the lighter area and the darker area. You also get some interest, don't you? You can see that, but the colour's actually splitting. So that can be quite interesting. You could actually do this, use this technique if you've got like a red and a green and a blue biro and a black biro. You could use all those different colours and then see what happens as you spray it. Okay, now another technique that you can use if you have got your water soluble I need that back. Water soluble pens is add a little bit of water once you've drawn your image. So I'm adding my ink on here. I'm thinking about the areas that need to be darker, and I'm doing a little bit more cross hatching there. Okay, like so. There might be a little bit of texture on this one, and then I'm going to go in, if I can find my little brush, go in with my water to dissolve the ink, like so. Okay, now you could obviously, if you wanted to, you could actually use your watercolours and introduce a little bit of colour, but similarly it could just be the colour of the ink. So there's lots of different techniques you can use to fill up 3 or 4 pages of observational drawings in your sketchbook. Okay, now if you've got a new sketchbook, then you could obviously start at the beginning of your book. You could actually just go a few pages in, and you can do drawing on one page and then on another further on and another further on. They don't have to all be together, but you might want to have a chronological record of what you've been doing, so in which case they probably will follow on naturally. If you've got an old sketchbook and some of the drawings you're not happy with, then what you can do is you can partially paint over the stuff that you've done underneath and then draw over the top. Depending on what you use to paint the background with might affect what you work over the top. Here I used acrylic and I tried to work in pencil and it didn't like it very much, so I had to change to biro, and then I used a little bit of ink. I think that's ink there, and that's oil pastel that side. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a new sketchbook. You can draw on separate bits of paper and then stick them in if you want to. Okay, this is actually my daughter's sketchbook, and she's very naughty. She threw it in the bin, so she'd treated all her pages like this. So what I've done is I've retrieved it from the bin and I've just knocked back those backgrounds a little bit with either acrylic or gesso, so I can actually carry on working on it. And so this is going to be my sketchbook for this project. Okay, right, so here I can show you. I think that's probably dry enough to work on. This is gouache, and because that's evaporated now, then I can just go in and bring back my highlights if you want to. Now, great thing about gouache is if you're not happy with it, you can just wet it and wipe it off. Okay. Whereas obviously if you're working in acrylic, you couldn't do that. Once it's dry forever. But yeah, if you wanted to bring back any particular areas or add any particular colours, then you can. But if you're not happy with it, you just wipe it away. and then once that's dry, then if you wanted to, you could carry on building up those areas again with your ink. You can spray it again, it's up to you. One thing that's worth bearing in mind is that it does actually make the image go through. That can it can be a more exciting image than the one you've actually drawn, but look at that, isn't that lovely? So you can work on that side, you can work on that, and just how far does it go? That's the question. Has it gone through? Oh, there's a little bit there, which is quite interesting. But hey, there you go. Right, catch up with you later. Bye bye.